What is up with the UK-US South Asian debate?
Now, this is absolute slander. Like, the audacity. British Asians walked so American Asians could run. Like, the disrespect. He gave you all those Punjabi bangers. Blinded by the light, bend it like Beckham, east is east. The British Desi experience is unmatched. Like, my guy, I sincerely apologize that you didn't get to experience that.
Calling yourself Asian in America versus calling yourself Asian in England are two totally different things. See, I'm Mexican and Pakistani, and I like to mark off Hispanic, and I also mark off Asian. And when people find out that I mark off Asian, they laugh at me. But when I text people from London, they use the word Asian in reference to people that are from South Asia. But here in America, we're accustomed to using the word Asian in reference to East Asia.
Asian here because the first Asian people to come here were Indians. In America, the first Asian people to come over were from China, whatever, building railroads.
Oh, so they made...
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
so
the idea that they're Asian is crazy to me.
What is going on with the Indians in Canada? Because, like, the Indians in the UK, like the Sikhs, the Hindus, were pretty well respected by most of the British public. Like, obviously not everyone, but a majority of them, like, have pretty good views towards us, you know what I'm saying? In Canada, bro, like, absolutely hate our guts, bro. Like, what did you lot do, honestly? Because Canadians are known to be, like, the nicest people on the planet, you know what I'm saying? So if you piss them off, you must have done something fucked, honestly, bro. Like, look, I'm not Canadian, I don't know the story, but... bro, sort it out, honestly.
Listen, my Canadians watching this video are going to have to give me an answer for that one in the comments. And they're also going to have to pick a side by the end of this video, because today we are going to be talking about the cultural differences between UK South Asians and US South Asians. Because I've come to realize that despite the fact we're all brown and live in the West, there are a lot of nuances which I've been seeing. And I think these differences need to be addressed. And also, I'm making this video because literally everyone on YouTube is making a UK versus USA diaspora war video. So I thought, why not jump in and add my 2 pence on the South Asian community. But before we dive in, make sure you guys run up the likes on this video and drop a comment, because it makes a massive difference as to how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. And word to Upna J, it's the great lock-in right now. And even though I might have locked out temporarily, I'm back on my grind. So subscribe, because I'm gonna make TBE winter a real thing and more videos are gonna be on the way. But I feel like we need to talk about the perceptions that we have of both countries, because with Americans, I feel like when they think of the UK, they're thinking about certain stereotypes like British food is awful and that we all eat beans on toast and tea and crumpets. People think that Central C is the UK savior along with this new underground wave, and I feel like a lot of Americans base the whole of the UK off of London and London culture only. And trust me, when it comes to South Asians, the UK is a lot bigger than just London. And also, we all know that the Americans have got this obsession with the British accent, and I'm sure we've all seen the memes surrounding that. But best believe, if I'm in America, then I might have to use it as a cheat code, and I'm using it to my advantage. And I'm going to be throwing phrases out that I don't even use in real life. For example, every girl is automatically going to get called darling or love. That's rule number 1, because I'm hearing that that's the method out there. I mean, let me know if they patched it. But when it comes to how we see Americans in the UK, the list of stereotypes is long. Because we think that Americans are the guys who don't know geography. We think that a lot of you guys are very loud and a bit ignorant. And we also think that some of the laws and policies that you have in your country are a bit crazy. And because of that, we feel like America is a bit like a GTA server. And we also think it's mad that you guys are going to be hosting the World Cup next year. But obviously, that's just how some people think. And even I have to admit, as someone British, that the way some people talk about Americans online is a bit obnoxious. But occasionally I do see glazed posts for America and people from the UK imagining what it would be like being born in America instead. Because from what we see in the movies and online, America does look lit, like, I'm not gonna lie. Especially the high school experience, the sports games which are packed out, the food videos. And some people do see America as a bit of a utopia. But obviously I know that's not the full picture and there's a lot more nuance to America than that. But me personally, I got a lot of love for the Americans, even though I've never been there and I would love to go, because most of the music I listen to is American, the shows I watch are American, and the biggest audience and group of people who watch my videos are American. So shout out to you guys. You know, God bless America and all of that. But when it comes to being South Asian in America, it looks like there are definitely a lot of pros and cons, which I'm going to explain in a moment, because we're going to be comparing different aspects of what it means to be South Asian in both countries. Now first, we need to look at the demographics. So in the US, there are roughly 6 to 6.5 million people who identify as South Asian, and around 80% of these people are of Indian descent. And South Asians in the US make up around 1.5% of the US's total population, whereas in the UK, there are roughly 5 million people who identify as South Asian, with 36.5% of these people being Indian, 32% being Pakistani, and 13% being Bengali. And if you count the other South Asian ethnicities, which were a bit harder to find stats on, they make up around 19% of the South Asian population. population altogether in the UK. And South Asians in the UK make up around 7.5% of the UK's total population. So whilst the US does have slightly higher raw numbers at around 1 million more people, the UK has a larger proportion of South Asians. And I think this is a big influence on the difference in cultures between the two countries. Now, if you look at when South Asians started coming to the UK, a majority of the community came between 1940 and 1970. And the reason for this is obviously because the UK had a massive labour shortage during that period, and they needed workers to rebuild the country after the Second World War, and they needed people to work in industries like manufacturing, textiles and transport. And obviously they didn't just need workers from South Asia, they also needed workers from Africa and the Caribbean to help rebuild the economy. So if you're an ethnic minority and someone tries to tell you that we came to the UK or that we invaded the country or something, that's just not true. We were invited to come to the UK and they needed us to help the country function. Always remember that. Now obviously South Asians have been in Britain since the colonial times, and there were certain moments in the 80s where certain events like the expulsion of Indians in Uganda or the Gurkha settlements in Nepal during the 2000s meant that more people from those communities came into the UK. But if you look at the core of the community, most people came between the 40s and the 70s. Now in the US, the migration pattern is slightly different because, for example, Punjabis from British India have been in the US since the 1900s, and you may have seen that story about why Punjabi men had to marry Mexican women to stay in the US. But if you look at the largest wave of migration into the US, this happened after the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act, which basically allowed highly skilled workers from South Asia to come into the US, and this rapidly expanded during the 1980s. And the majority of these workers were doctors, engineers and academics, or very highly skilled. So as you can see, South Asians in the UK technically have longer roots in their country, and because of this you can find a lot of very distinct hubs and areas for South Asians. So for example, you'll find a large Gujarati population in Leicester or Wembley, or a large Punjabi population in Southall. And if you go to an area like East London and Tower Hamlets, you'll find a large Bengali population. And if you go to areas like Bradford and Luton, then you'll find large Pakistani populations. And these are literally areas which are defined by the ethnicity of the people. So if you go to them, then you'll know what type of food to expect and things to see just because of the strong South Asian presence. Now based on my research with the US, there are definitely similar hubs with large populations of specific ethnic groups. So for example, areas like New Jersey and the Bay Area have large Indian populations. But overall it's a bit different compared to the UK, and the US South Asian population is a lot more spread out. And this is obviously because the US is a bigger and more dense country. So instead of people with the same ethnicity all living in the same area, you're probably more likely to see them congregated at their religious institutions or cultural events instead. Now personally, my area in the UK has a very strong South Asian presence of multiple ethnicities, to the point where I started calling my area Brown Town, because if you walk around and you see the people that live here, the majority is brown. And it even got to the point where I was speaking to someone white who lives in my area, and they were saying that sometimes it can feel isolating being one of the few white people their age around. Now I know you guys might think that they're saying this from a place of malice or that they had bad intentions saying this, but trust me, it wasn't like that. But it kind of made me think like, damn, imagine being the only white person at your school or university or something. And I feel like I've experienced that before because I've been in situations where I'm the only Indian, and it can feel a bit isolating, to be honest. So I had a bit of sympathy for that person. But they also told me that they do like living in the area, and one of the reasons why they like the area is because of the food. Now I was going to talk about the differences in desi food in the UK compared to the US, but bro, food is a whole video in and of itself. So listen, stay tuned because I'm going to drop a full video comparing the UK food scene with the US food scene. And low-key, I think I might have to make this a UK versus US series. Like, let me know what you guys think of that in the comments. But right now I want to talk about the perceptions of South Asians in both countries. Now in the US, I feel like people have this perception that specifically Indians are a model minority because of stats like Indian Americans having the highest income per capita, and these lists are usually followed by other Asian American ethnic groups like Taiwanese and Filipino households. Shout out my Filipinos, by the way. And another ethnicity that consistently comes in the top 5 on this list are Sri Lankan Americans, and rounding out the top 10 on this list, or in the mid-section, are the Pakistani Americans. It's clear that brown Americans do find success in America, probably because of the immigration background of these guys, being highly skilled and having more money than their peers in the motherland. And in the UK is similar, with stats like Indians owning the most property in London, or Indians again being the ethnic group which has the highest household income. And I know these stats don't represent every single Indian in these countries, and I feel like people do use these stats to try and make a point and prove why their ethnicity is the best, or why their background is the best. And in my opinion, I think that's borderline insanity to try and use these statistics in an argument point, especially if you aren't a part of that high earning group. I mean, before you try and get into a DC Marvel style debate on why your ethnicity is better, please get your money up before you use these stats. And that's why you'll never see me use these stats to try and prove a point or flex, because I'll be honest, I'm not there yet. But give me 5 years and we'll see what happens. But the reason why I bring up these statistics is because despite this model minority conclusion that some people have about brown people, it still doesn't correlate to influence or power in the respective country. I mean, we're still actively seeing hate towards Indians and brown people, and it's not a secret that racism is still more alive than ever in 2025. I mean, look at the H1B situation in America. Look at the attacks in Northern Ireland. Despite the fact that Indians are supposedly supposed to be one of the good ones, it looks like a lot of people don't necessarily feel that way. And I even saw someone say on one of these threads that the UK and the US can't be racist because they let minorities succeed. And that has got to be one of the most obtuse things I've ever seen online. I mean, just because you're successful as a minority doesn't automatically make you exempt from racism. I mean, even Rishi Sunak, who was the first British Indian Prime Minister of the UK, acknowledged that he faced racism growing up, and also whilst he was in power, despite achieving quite a lot academically and career-wise. And this got me thinking about a lyric in a song by Zayn Malik where he said, "I worked hard in a white band, but they still laughed at the Asian." Yeah, and this is Zayn Malik, who is half British, half Pakistani, saying this. And he was a part of One Direction, which is a group that did crazy numbers, had headline tours and all of that. So despite the fact that he's successful and he made millions off of music, he still acknowledges the pain that racism made him feel. And by the way, Zayn Malik deserves his flowers because low-key he did a lot for brown men in the UK. And I even saw this one brown red pill YouTuber who I'm not even gonna mention by name because he's just turned into a goof. You can probably guess who it is though. But regardless, he said in a clip that Zayn Malik is the reason why he as a brown man thought that it was possible to get girls. I'm not a big One Direction listener like that. Obviously I have to keep up the image that I only listen to rap and genres like that. But of the songs that I have listened to, Zayn is probably the most talented. I'm not even saying that because he's brown, but he probably was the best member. And I even remember the backlash from when he left the group because Twitter went off that day. But shout out to Zayn because he did a lot for the image of South Asian men in this country. Now we can also look at a similar example in the US with Laura Raj, the Indian Tamil singer of the group Cat's Eye. And Laura Raj has been killing it recently, absolutely killing it. The Gap advert that she was a part of went viral and it sparked a lot of talk about representation for brown women. And obviously she was a big part of that. And her group Cat's Eye has been doing some crazy numbers recently. And I saw someone say that Laura Raj is too talented to be up on stage talking about some fried chicken, gnarly, Tesla, gnarly, gang in her songs. And honestly, they do have a point. But despite the fact that Laura Raj has been making waves recently, there's always something weird that I'm seeing online whenever her name gets involved. And the majority of the time is to do with her being Indian. Now, whenever you see a post of her, there's always a comment about her being the only Indian baddie or Indian and bad in the same sentence for the first time. Whenever people comment on those why do people see Indians as unattractive or what race would you not date videos, people always provide Laura Raj as the counter example as if she just magically debunks those ignorant talking points. Now don't get it twisted, Laura Raj is obviously bad, but I feel like there's this narrative in the US that attractive Indians are rare to find, or finding one is like finding a rare Pokemon. And I feel like if you tried to say something like I've never seen an Indian baddie in the UK, and I feel like you'd honestly get laughed at and people would look at you as weird. Maybe it's because we see brown people as more attractive in the UK, or we can at least appreciate ourselves a bit more. Because I personally never believed that whole Indians are undesirable narrative, and I feel like it stemmed from the US, so you guys have some explaining to do. But another thing that happened with Laura Raj was that apparently there was a situation where a fan reported Laura Raj to ICE, which is the US deportation service, despite the fact that she was literally born in the US and has citizenship. And let's be honest, they probably just did that because she's Indian. And I've been reading a lot about the ICE situation recently, and it's honestly insane what's going on out there. And shout out to Jay Huss, because around here we drink our Fanta with no ice, and we also don't drink Fanta, and you already know the reason why. But yeah, the Laura Raj and Zayn Malik situation proves that you can be successful whilst being South Asian, and you can be culturally relevant and have millions of fans, but you're still brown at the end of the day, and unfortunately you have to deal with what comes with that. Whether that be in the UK or US. And I'm actually going to be talking about this successful but brown idea more in the next video, so stay tuned. Now I know that I may not have talked about everything to do with UK and US South Asians in this video, and that's because there's a lot to talk about. This video was essentially laying the groundwork and the foundation. We told the story of how South Asians came into both countries, and we talked about the perceptions of brown people in both, and this was just episode 1. Episode 2 is dropping very soon, and that's going to be about food. And if there's any other topic you want me to cover regarding UK and US South Asians, then let me know in the comments, because there's a lot to talk about, and best believe I'm going to be here to talk about it, so stay tuned. TBE Winter.